Hey there. Did you know that it's estimated that 350 million people worldwide suffer from depression? I didn't realize that the statistic was that, which means you probably know someone who's suffering from depression. Hey, it's Kim. If you don't know me and you're new to my world, I'm Kim Argetsinger. I'm a success and mindset business coach. And every Friday I talk and we do a Friday live, and usually we talk about something mindset or something entrepreneurial. But today I have a bit of a different topic, clearly. I had a very different topic slotted, and I actually went online the other day and was scrolling through on the 10th, and it was World Mental Health Awareness Day. And I saw a few of the images on the feed, and I thought, great, other people are talking about this. I don't have to. That's awesome. So I thought that was great. That meant that I could just ignore the topic, and so I kind of brushed it under the rug. And I have to call a little bit of BS on myself because I'm very much a part of the statistic that I just shared with you. And I actually have quite a lot to share around mental health. And so today I want to talk a little bit more about mental health and my experience with it, particularly depression, for anyone who might need to hear it or for anyone who this might help. For anyone who doesn't want to hear it, you're welcome to hop off. Next week, we'll be back with some more mindset and entrepreneurial stuff. And totally hear that, and I'm okay with that. For anyone who does want to hear this, or for anyone who knows someone who might want to hear this, you have my blessing to share this video with anyone. I'm happy to share my story. So I think mental health, depression, anxiety, mental health in general, I think it's very stigmatized. I think there is a lot of misunderstanding and misdiagnoses. I think in the world of positive psychology, which I'm very much a part of, I believe in it, I subscribe to it, but I think there's a misunderstood message that we're supposed to just positive our way through life. And it doesn't exactly work that way, particularly with a mental health disorder, but in general, it doesn't work that way. That's not how positive psychology works. I think, as anyone who knows me and follows my work, I'm very into mindset and how the brain works and how the brain is wired. And there's a reason I'm so fascinated by the brain and driven to learn this. I think I'm simultaneously fascinated and relieved to know that we all have the ability to rewire our brain. And I have not had my brain scanned, but I think if I were to go and get my brain scanned, I would find that there are regions of my brain that light up that show that I'm very prone to both depression and anxiety. So let's see, where do I start with my story here? I first remember experiencing depression in around 6th grade. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just remember the thought of having to go to school, feeling like I was pushing my way uphill, going through mud. It just felt incredibly hard to do anything, to get out of bed. Seeing friends or doing anything that should have been fun left me feeling like I was sleepwalking. I somehow found myself on the cheerleading squad, and I think it was an act in sheer willpower that I made it to practice and was able to plaster a smile on my face and make my way through it. Oh, I can hear people in my hallway there. That's funny. Where was I? Yes. So I was not old enough to know what was going on. I remember just feeling this way and feeling incredibly empty and hollow. I was participating in activities that weren't good for me and that were harmful to my health because I didn't care what happened to me. And around this time, I remember picking up must have been a medical journal of some kind. Clearly, I've always been a bit of a dork about this stuff. I picked up a medical journal and found some symptoms that were for depression and realized that what I've been feeling matched these symptoms. And I actually went to the guidance counselor at my school and sought out some help. The guidance counselor called my mom and asked my mom to go and get help for me, which is where we went. And I'm just going to interrupt this by saying I'm not looking for, this isn't about sympathy or empathy, but I'm very happy now. I'm a very happy, fulfilled person who feels happiness, and I feel ecstasy, I feel fulfillment, I feel also sadness and anger for very real reasons. But this is to really shine a light on what depression is, and I think it can be very misdiagnosed, because when this happened for me, when the guidance counselor called my mom took me to a doctor who was a very educated, very well-informed doctor. I'm sure she was very well-meaning, and I went to the doctor and she proceeded to go through the general questions you would ask someone to check for red flags. So were my parents divorced? Was there child abuse in the home? Was there substance abuse? And when I didn't match the red flags, she told me to snap out of it. And she told my mom that I didn't have a reason to be upset. And luckily, hey, who just joined? Luckily, I have amazing parents, and they didn't listen to that doctor. And my mom sought out other help, because here I was behaving in some ways that were really harmful to my health. And I was doing some things that were pretty hurtful to myself. And a very well-meaning and educated doctor was basically telling me to buck up and to get over it, and there was nothing wrong with me. I realize I'm very lucky, and that not everyone is that lucky. So that's one of the reasons I want to share this today with everyone. Sorry, it's a little tougher than I thought it was going to be. So finally, at some point, my mom, luckily, was very persistent. So was my dad. And they found a doctor, a therapist, who put me on a combination of medicine and therapy. And I got to say, for anyone, I think there's a bit of a misconception around medication. It wasn't a like candy-coated cure-all where suddenly I was like high on life and happy, because that was never the problem. I wasn't unhappy. Depression isn't necessarily being unhappy. That can very much be a symptom, and sadness can very much be a symptom, but it's actually it's a disorder. It's a mental disorder. So it manifests in many ways, and that can be one of the ways it manifests. So taking medication, it wasn't like a happy pill. In fact, it took quite a while to get the medication correct. They had to up my dosage quite a few times. I was actually told by the doctor it was one of the worst cases they had ever seen. So it took quite a while to get that medication sorted out and for it to get under control with the therapy. And I remember when it finally did all click and get into place, I just remember feeling, oh, life doesn't have to be this hard. Not everything has to be so fucking hard. And I just remember feeling even and clear. It wasn't a high. It wasn't on drugs. It just felt like I was stable and like I could move through life. I imagine the way people who aren't depressed move through life. And I would still feel sadness and still cry, but instead of that coming from a place of emptiness and a place of, quite honestly, not wanting to live, it came from something happening. And I might still feel tired if I hadn't slept well, but I no longer wanted to sleep the days away, because what would happen before is I would just not want to get out of bed. I didn't see the point in even bothering to get out of bed. I didn't see the point in living, quite honestly. I didn't understand why I should even bother to try, because everything just felt empty and hollow. And I want to share that because I think there is a bit of a misconception that depression is just sadness, or that it's just moodiness, or that it's just really bad PMS, or that it's just the blues. And it's something that, while those can be symptoms, it's so much more than that. And depression isn't, I think sometimes people think that people are being lazy because they're not trying to fix it. And that's not what's going on when someone doesn't want to go out of bed. That's very much a symptom of depression. So the cause of depression is a little bit murky. Science hasn't quite figured it out. There's some evidence that points to genetics. There's some evidence that points to chemical imbalances. Yes, situations and traumas can play a part in it and trigger that, but that's actually a different kind of depression. And that can also trigger it in someone. There's a great doctor called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, it's Dr. Amen or Dr. Amen. It's a great book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. He has a website, he has a center in California where they can actually do brain scans. And he talks about depression not being a behavioral or a personality flaw, but rather it's a disorder in the brain or a biological problem in the brain that can be balanced. So I think that's something that's important to know. So I want to share that today about and around mental health and mental health awareness, that depression isn't something that you can just snap out of. It's, I think, telling someone to snap out of depression is similar to telling someone who has high blood pressure or someone who has diabetes that they should just snap out of it. It is very much something that can be treated, and it's very much something that can be changed, but it's not something that someone can just snap out of. And it's not even about something necessarily being wrong. I remember when I was depressed, and I went through this a few times in my life. It was middle school, then again in high school, then again in college. And I remember wishing that something was wrong so that I could have a reason for feeling the way I did. And I could point a finger and have a cause, and so that I wouldn't have to feel so much shame and guilt, because there can be quite a lot of shame, I think, around having depression. I remember just wishing that something would actually be wrong. So depression isn't necessarily about there being a problem. It's more something that's going on in the brain. I will also share that each time I had depression, it got subsequently easier, because I got the tools and I learned each time how to catch the symptoms. You know, when I was younger in middle school, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have those tools. I'm not that old, but it was before Google, so I couldn't just Google what was going on with me, and I didn't have the self-awareness that I have now. But now I can very much, almost before the symptoms come, and catch them. I'm not on medication, not there's anything wrong with it, but I'm not on it, and I can very much catch them, and I know how to combat that and what I need to do to stop that from, oh, of course, thank you for saying that. I'm happy to share. I hope this helps someone else, because it can be a very isolating place, and I know it can be a very lonely place where we feel like we're alone. So it got easier each time that I had it, but I also really needed help. I don't think I'd be sitting here sharing this with you today had I not gotten help. If my parents hadn't been the amazing parents they are, and if they hadn't got me help in the first place, I quite honestly don't know if I'd be in this world, but definitely not sharing this with you. And when my depression was triggered again in high school and college, I needed the support of someone to say, hey, you need to go see someone. You need a therapist. I needed the help of someone else to give me the tools to teach me how to take care of myself. And so for anyone that this might be resonating with, I want to say there is so much help out there, and there's absolutely no shame in asking for help. I think there's bravery and power, and there is so much happiness and joy on the other side of depression. I know when you're in it, it can feel like there is a dark black cloud that is following you around at all times of the day, and that it's never going to end. And it can start to feel like, what is the point of even trying? But if you can find the courage to get the help, there is so much joy on the other side, and the clouds really and truly can part, and life can be so much better on the other end. I am not a therapist. I think I have to say, like, I can't give medical advice, so don't take that as medical advice. But if this is resonating with anyone, if this is clicking with anyone, I would urge you to reach out to a mental health professional and seek some help, because there really, really, really is and are so many solutions, and life can be fucking wonderful, and it doesn't have to be so hard. So, this was tough today. That is what I mental health awareness. If you know anyone that this might resonate with, in my messy way of telling this, please feel free to share it. Next week, I will be back with an entrepreneurial topic, and we'll talk mindset, and we'll get back to our regular programming. But I really did want to share this today. I think it's something important for people to be aware of. And I just want to leave everyone who's watching, anyone who watches on the replay, with just a thought around compassion. I think right now, especially in the world, but just in general, we could all stand to give each other a little more compassion. I think most people at some point in their life have gone through something that none of us are aware of, or are going through something that we're not aware of. And if we could all show a little more compassion to one another, I think that could go a long way. So I'm wishing you a whole lot of love, a whole lot of compassion, and I'm wishing you a beautiful weekend. And I don't want to end this on a bad note. So I will just again remind you that life is good now. I am happy. Life is wonderful. There really is so much on the other side of all of this. And I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Thank you for letting me share this with you. Lots and lots of love.